This useless wife. This good-for-nothing wife. I bet you deliberately got hit by the car because you wanted an excuse to take it easy, didn't you? What were you thinking? Someone who causes trouble for us might make this household more comfortable by not being here. How long are you planning to stay in the hospital? These cruel words were hurled at me as I lay in a hospital bed, severely injured. My husband, William, and mother-in-law, Tamara, were the ones saying them. I won't forgive them anymore. They'll take responsibility for everything I've endured until now. Watch me prove my resolve. My name is Autumn. I'm 32 years old. My husband, William, is 35, and we have a 5-year-old daughter named Michelle. I've been living with my mother-in-law, Tamara, William's mom, ever since we got married. It's the 4 of us in one house. With William's salary alone, we can barely make ends meet, let alone save any money. So I work full-time as a salaried employee. Although Michelle goes to daycare, she's still at an age where she needs a lot of care. Balancing work and parenting keeps me on my toes every single day. I collapse into bed each night as if I fainted. I wish William would help out with the housework just a little. Hey, Autumn, my lunchbox isn't wrapped. I can't take it like this. But the food is already packed inside, right? All you have to do is put it in a bag yourself. During the already chaotic morning, William's irritated voice pierced through. My response was met with the sound of him slamming the table. Don't mess with me. Preparing the lunchbox is your job, isn't it? And preparing means making it ready for me to take immediately. What are you doing slacking off first thing in the morning? Hurry up and wrap it. While helping Michelle get ready for daycare, I sighed. Why does he have to complain so much about something as minor as putting a lunchbox in a bag? As I was about to respond with do-it-yourself, a snide voice interrupted, not William's this time. Autumn, you're such a hopeless wife, aren't you? How can you not even put your precious husband's lunchbox in a bag? Poor William, he drew the short straw. Tamara's morning tirade was in full swing. Despite preparing sandwiches every morning, avoiding frozen foods, arranging colorful fruits, all to meet William's overly demanding expectations for his lunchbox. This is the treatment I get. I think William should at least handle something as trivial as putting his lunchbox in a bag. I'm busy too, you know. I finished helping Michelle get ready for daycare and started hanging up the laundry while retorting to Tamara. That's when both Tamara and William started yelling at the same time. Unbelievable. Do you have no love for William? Are you seriously making your husband handle kitchen chores? What a flop of a wife. Do you even understand what the pillar of strength in a family means? Have you forgotten that the only reason you and Michelle can live comfortably is because I'm out there working as hard as I can? Since the birth of our child, this has been their attitude about everything. I thought to myself that one of them could have wrapped the lunchbox in the time they spent yelling. Without a word, I put down the laundry and wrapped William's lunchbox. Here you go. If you'd just done it right away without talking back, things would have been so much easier. You're really not straightforward, are you? The only reason we've been married for so long is because I'm such a tolerant person. Saying that, he slammed the door and left for work. Honestly, even though you're such an incompetent and hopeless wife, William hasn't abandoned you because you got married and had a child. Autumn, you really don't appreciate him enough. How about saying thank you to William for going out there and earning money once in a while I busily took care of the household chores from early morning? Tamara leisurely brewed tea, her mouth the only part of her that was busy. I work hard outside the house and handle all the housework and child care on top of it. But if I argued any further, It would only waste more of my time. I muttered a rebuttal in my heart, said a quick "I'm off" to Tamara, and took Michelle's hand to leave the house. I might be able to leave work on time today. Picking up Michelle, preparing dinner, and getting a head start on tomorrow's lunch. Even after work, my mind is filled with tasks. When I think about it, I haven't had a moment to relax in the past 5 years. It's not because childcare or work is particularly tough, but because of the constant fear of being berated by William or Tamara if I make a mistake or forget something. I hurried out of the office and went straight to Michelle's daycare. After picking her up, I rushed home. Autumn, the seasoning is too strong, and there are too few dishes. Autumn, pass the salt. The food's bland. Why do I have to adjust the taste of something I'm eating? You're terrible at cooking. Dinner was lively again today. If the liveliness came from Michelle happily chatting away, I'd welcome it. But the noise was from the 2 adults in the house, complaining about the food being too salty or too bland. They monopolized the conversation at the table. I'm sure Michelle has things she wants to talk about too. Hey, if you're going to complain every time, why don't you cook dinner? You usually get home earlier than I do, don't you? Don't be ridiculous. Haven't you ever heard a woman's place is in the kitchen? Autumn, you're so clueless. If people at work found out that I, a man, was doing housework, they'd laugh at me. Exactly. You're just trying to shift everything onto William so you can take it easy. Listen, if you want your husband to succeed, you, as his wife, need to manage the household perfectly. Well, that's what I've been doing so far. Despite working full-time, I've never asked William to even vacuum. To be precise, he's never offered to do it. He also refused to take care of Michelle right after she was born. He even moved into a separate bedroom because he found my night feedings annoying. I'm working full-time, doing all the housework and child care solo. Sometimes it's just too much. If William can't help, could Tamara at least prepare dinner? Tamara doesn't contribute to the household chores or expenses. Even though she's still healthy, she spends her days lazing around, watching TV, and hurling complaints at me. So at the very least, I thought she could help with dinner. But when I voiced my hope, unbelievable. Autumn, do you even understand your position? How dare you, as a wife, tell your mother-in-law to cook? I can't believe it. Autumn, who do you think you are? Mom isn't some task rabbit you can order around. As they shouted in unison, Michelle began crying out of fear. I'm sorry, sweetheart. That must have scared you. I quickly tried to comfort her, but neither Tamarin or William paid her any attention. They continued eating their dinner with annoyed expressions and left the dining table without even clearing their plates. William used to be such a kind person when we were dating, and even up until my pregnancy and childbirth. But after I gave birth to Michelle and he realized I couldn't easily leave, he gradually started showing his true colors. Now it's almost as if making my life miserable has become a hobby for him and Tamara. Tears of shame and frustration welled up in my eyes, but I didn't want to cry in front of Michelle. Forcing a smile, I finished dinner with her, helped her shower, and tucked her into bed. Only then, alone in the dark of my bedroom, did I quietly let my tears fall. I needed to sleep, but there was one task I couldn't skip. The next morning, from the moment I woke up until the moment Michelle and I left the house, I faced an onslaught of complaints from them. Everything felt so meaningless. No one was willing to help me. No one appreciated my efforts. Lost in these negative thoughts, I was waiting at a red light on my bicycle when a car, failing to make a left turn, slammed into me. I was thrown off my bike and lost consciousness. The next time I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital. Apparently, I had already undergone several examinations. Thankfully, there was no brain injury, but I had broken a large bone in my leg. The doctor explained that I would need surgery and at least 2 weeks of hospitalization. My first thought was about the house. What am I going to do? I can't trust William or Tamara to properly take care of Michelle. My chest tightened with anxiety just as the hospital room door swung open. William and Tamara entered. "You look fine to me." What a hassle it was to deal with all the hospital paperwork. William scoffed, looking at me with the usual disdain even as I lay there wrapped in bandages. Beside him, Tamara let out a shallow laugh. "Autumn, you're so clumsy. If you'd been careful, this wouldn't have happened. You probably threw yourself in front of that car just to get out of work, didn't you? Poor driver had to deal with you." That might be true. She's always whining about how hard housework and her job are. How dare you? Why would I intentionally cause an accident that resulted in this kind of injury? I choked back tears, clutching my aching body, as William sighed deeply again. Yay, poor you. At least all you have to do is lie there and complain about the pain. Meanwhile, we're stuck doing all the extra work, dealing with the hospital, calling the daycare for extended care. We're the real victims here. Exactly. I'm starving, and there's nothing to eat because Autumn didn't even bother to prepare meals in advance. At least cook dinner before getting yourself hit by a car, you useless woman. Actually, with how useless she normally is, maybe it's better if she doesn't come home. Things might be more comfortable without her. How long will this hospital keep her? You've got to be kidding me. These two, they don't even acknowledge that I've been handling everything around the house. To think they'd say such things. I was too shocked to respond. William, emboldened, laughed crudely and aimed his phone at me. "Oh, you actually look like a sick person with that pale face. Let me snap a photo to commemorate this." He took my picture with a sneer, then left the room with Tamara. Alone, I sat in silence, stunned. That's how they treat me after all I've done managing the house, my job, and raising Michelle. I get it now. No, I've known it all along. The only question was when I'd admit it to myself. They're not my family. They're bandits, stealing every ounce of my happiness. It's time to break free from this misplaced sense of duty. From now on, I'll take action to find happiness for Michelle and me, just the two of us. As I lay in the hospital bed, my foggy mind worked hard to come up with a plan for life after discharge. Thankfully, I had kept a diary even on the toughest nights, anticipating that a day like this might come. It was finally going to serve its purpose. What are these crutches? They're such a nuisance. When I returned home after surgery and rehabilitation, Tamara's shrill voice greeted me. "I'm so sorry, Tamara. I really am a failure as a wife to inconvenience you like this," I said with a smile as I set aside the crutches I had borrowed just in case. Tamara scoffed. "What's with that weird smile? So bland and irritating." She found something to criticize, as always, but I didn't have the energy to care anymore. Following the list I had prepared in the hospital, I quietly and swiftly gathered only the essentials. Dragging my still aching leg, I moved cautiously through the house, collecting my and Michelle's bank books, insurance cards, and basic necessities. I stuffed them into my everyday bag, then informed Tamara that I was going to pick up Michelle, and hurried into a taxi. Relief washed over me as soon as I left the house. At the daycare, the staff mentioned that Michelle had shared details about my time in the hospital. They were fully supportive of my decision to leave the house. Michelle and I took another taxi to a friend's apartment, where we found refuge. Although I felt guilty imposing on a friend who lived alone, she was thrilled. saying, "I'm so glad you've finally come to your senses," and escaped. She let us stay for about 2 weeks until I could finalize the lease on an apartment I had found through online viewings during my hospital stay. It was ready for immediate move-in, and I couldn't be more grateful for her help. And so I escaped from the hellish household ruled by William and Tamara. But from the very day I left, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. The relentless caller, of course, was William. He sent threatening messages, saying things like, "Do you know what will happen if you don't answer your phone?" It was clear that divorcing him wouldn't be easy. Resolving to face the situation head-on, I finally answered one of his calls. "Hello, Autumn. Where the hell have you been wandering around at this hour? What about our dinner? The shower isn't ready. The laundry is still sitting in the basket." His first words weren't about Michelle or me, but solely about his own inconveniences. I found myself wondering how I had ever managed to live with someone like him. With a calm yet cold demeanor, I replied, "We're not coming back to you. I want a divorce. I'll be taking custody of Michelle, of course." "What, divorce? Who do you think you are, Autumn? Did that hospital stay make you lose your mind?" "No. In fact, being away from you during my hospital stay cleared my mind. I've regained my sanity. If you won't agree to the divorce over the phone, I'll come and discuss it with you in person." Acting all high and mighty. Divorce is such an embarrassing thing. Do you really think I'd allow it? Just come home already. No, I won't. I'm not coming back. I'll meet you in 2 weeks to start the divorce discussions. 2 weeks? Why so long? What are we supposed to do about meals, laundry, and cleaning in the meantime? It's telling that those are your only concerns. I finally see the kind of person you truly are. Don't contact me again until 2 weeks from now. For the first time, I firmly ended the call without letting William have the last word. That alone must have been a considerable shock to him. But the real battle was yet to come. To recharge for the confrontation 2 weeks later, I spent a joyful evening with my friend and Michelle, sharing a hearty dinner. The next 2 weeks flew by. During that time, I finalized all arrangements for my new home and prepared for my new life. Then, on a weekend when my friend had the day off and could watch Michelle, I went alone to confront William and Tamara in our former home. Oh, look who had the audacity to come back. This ungrateful, useless wife. Autumn, do you even understand how furious I am, abandoning your duties as a wife, gallivanting with Michelle for 2 weeks? How dare you? As expected, they greeted me with arrogance and self-righteousness. I had anticipated this, but what truly shocked me was the state of the house. The kitchen was a disaster, with dishes and utensils piled high and scraps of food scattered everywhere. The living room and hallways were strewn with their discarded clothing, unopened mail, and delivery boxes left unattended. The whole place was in utter disarray, far dirtier than I could have imagined. The smell, the mess. "This is a garbage dump," I muttered, unable to suppress my shock. Only 2 weeks ago, I had poured my heart into keeping this house immaculate. Hearing my honest reaction, Tamara and William immediately exploded. "Whose fault do you think this is?" "That's right. I don't want to live in a filthy house like this either. It's because you abandoned your duties and left." "My duties, keeping the house clean, is the responsibility of everyone in the family. What did you do before I came into the picture? How is it possible that out of 3 adults, I'm the only one who knows where the vacuum cleaner is? Cleaning the house is a wife's job. I work hard to earn money outside, so don't you dare act high and mighty when you can't even handle your basic responsibilities. Let me remind you, William, that I earn a higher salary than you. Don't talk about being the breadwinner until you can support the entire family on your income alone. Who's acting high and mighty now? It was the first time I had raised my voice and retaliated with such specifics. They stood there, mouths agape, visibly stunned. What kind of wife says such things to her husband? A wife should be modest and devoted. Boasting about earning more than your husband, how tasteless. Unbelievable. It's not about the salary. I'm the man of the house, the pillar of strength. That makes me more important than you. If you keep acting so disrespectfully, Michelle will grow up to be just as arrogant as you. Fix your attitude, work harder, earn less than him. Don't quit your job. Their demands were utterly nonsensical. Looking at them, I couldn't believe I had ever lived under the same roof. Now that I had resolved to leave, their absurdity was glaringly obvious. I glared sharply at both of them. I refuse to be your slave any longer. Now, sign this divorce application. I thrust the completed form toward William, leaving only his signature. His face turned pale as he shouted in panic, "You've even prepared this. I'll never sign it. Do you know what people at work will say? This could ruin my reputation." Absolutely not. The fact that your first concern is your image says everything about you. I'm completely done. If you refuse, I'll take this to court. As we locked eyes, the tension thick between us, the intercom buzzed. What now, of all times? Tamara snapped as she stormed over to check it. Oh my. Who is it? It's Riley. And some of the neighbors. Riley lives next door to us. She's a sociable and strong-willed woman in her 40s, with a high school-aged child. Seeing her arrive at our house, leading a group of neighbors, left both Tamara and William visibly unsettled. What's going on? William, the type to prioritize appearances, quickly put on a friendly smile and opened the front door with a flourish. "Good evening, Riley, and everyone else, all together. What brings you here? Sorry, but we've had enough. You do realize we can hear everything out here, right?" Riley's sharp voice drew me and Tamara to the entrance as well. William glanced back at us, shrugging dramatically as if to feign innocence. "Oh, of course, it must have been noisy. I sincerely apologize. My incompetent wife was causing a scene. She's been emotionally unstable lately, and frankly, it's been so stressful being yelled at daily. I'm sure she's caused trouble for all of you, too." The nerve to spout such blatant lies. Before I could step in, Riley clicked her tongue loudly in frustration. "Enough already. It's you two who need to get your act together, not her." Her words left William and Tamara dumbfounded, both tilting their heads in confusion. "You, us? What did we do to you?" William stammered, still trying to maintain his forced smile. Riley gave a derisive laugh, letting her gaze sweep over the chaotic surroundings of the front yard. "What did you do? For starters, how about cleaning up this mess? Why haven't you been putting your trash out properly for collection?" Well, the once confident William suddenly looked flustered. Piled high outside the entrance was a mountain of trash enough to make anyone wonder how they had even managed to accumulate so much in just 2 weeks. It seemed to consist entirely of takeout containers and empty plastic bottles, which made sense given their refusal to cook for the neighbors, though the smell and unsightly heap must have been intolerable. This is all because my wife Autumn has completely neglected her duties. I deeply apologize for the inconvenience. Autumn, come out here and apologize. Oh, stop it. Autumn isn't neglecting anything. She left the house, didn't she? Took Michelle with her. Before I could even express my anger, Riley cut William off again. "Hold on, Riley. What are you saying? Autumn didn't leave. William isn't the type of man to let his wife walk out on him. Isn't that right, William? Tamara tried to smooth things over with a nervous laugh. But Riley shut her down with a cold stare. Don't even try to deny it. Everyone knows Autumn and Michelle are gone. Autumn used to greet me every morning while taking out the trash and cleaning the front yard. I saw her every day, rushing to pick Michelle up, hauling groceries on her bike, always busy but always polite. Riley exchanged nods and affirmations with the other neighbors, their expressions filled with solidarity. Tears welled up in my eyes. I had thought no one noticed, let alone appreciated, the efforts I put into my daily life. But here they were, proving me wrong. When Autumn and Michelle suddenly disappeared about 2 weeks ago, we all figured she'd had enough and left. And really, who could blame her? With a husband and mother-in-law who yell at her every day, of course she'd run out of patience. You did great, Autumn. William and Tamara turned bright red, while I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. Thank you so much. I finally decided to get a divorce. Michelle and I are fully prepared and ready to move into a new place together. Oh, that's great to hear. When we heard shouting again today, we thought Autumn might be in trouble. So we rallied the neighbors to come support you. Are you okay? Did they scare you again? Only then did I realize why Riley and the others had come to the house in a group. They must have been concerned about me even before today. Scared? You've got it all wrong. I'm the victim here, dealing with an incompetent wife. She's making a huge fuss about divorcing me, which is such an overreaction. I'm the one being gracious enough to stay married to such a problematic wife. William, oblivious to Riley's and the neighbors' intentions, continued to delude himself into thinking he was justified. I shot him a piercing glare through my tear-streaked face. Victim. You took me for granted, thinking I'd do whatever you said. You and Tamara treated me like a slave. I will get divorced. Like a slave. What a ridiculous accusation. All I've ever done is try to teach you how a proper wife should behave. And this is how you repay my kindness. You have such a twisted personality, Autumn. Exactly, Autumn. A wife should respect her husband. If you can't manage even the basics, you won't survive out there on your own after the divorce. William and Tamara, desperate to avoid the divorce, kept shouting nonsense. Riley and the neighbors looked at them with thinly veiled disdain, some even chuckling. Oh, come on, give it a rest. Don't you two realize you're infamous in the neighborhood as the worst husband and mother-in-law? Everyone avoids you. We all hear you screaming at Autumn every day. We're infamous. And no way. William, who cared deeply about appearances, visibly deflated. Tamara's face turned pale as well. It's true, even from next door. It was terrifying to listen to. Honestly, if there's a divorce trial, I'd gladly testify in Autumn's favor. Riley shot me an encouraging look. I nearly cried again, but I held it in and gave her a determined nod. I've documented every instance of verbal abuse over the past 5 years in a diary. I even have recordings. I've also kept records of the financial exploitation. My lawyer says it's more than enough evidence to win a divorce settlement and compensation. That's great news. Aim for $20,000, $30,000. We're all rooting for you. William looked utterly stunned, his eyes widening so much it seemed like they might pop out of his head. He stepped toward me in a panic. Wait, a lawyer? Seriously, $30,000? I can't afford that. Oh, but we have our savings as a couple, right? There's that whole thing about splitting assets in a divorce, isn't there? We can use that. Sorry, but your salary was far too low, and Tamara constantly splurged on food and clothes she wanted. Our savings are practically gone." When I calmly explained, William started trembling visibly. What? No way. I worked hard. Mom, did you spend all that money? Gee, give it back. No, that's not my problem. This is your divorce issue. It has nothing to do with me or compensation. Autumn, why did you keep such detailed records for 5 years? If you hated our behavior, why didn't you just say so? This is such a sneaky move. Even now, William showed no remorse. I confronted him directly, refusing to back down. What are you talking about? I did tell you how I felt, but neither you nor Tamar ever listened. For 5 years, you kept hurling insults at me. The pain I've endured over those years isn't something $30,000 can fix. But if money is the only way to settle this, then I'll accept $30,000. So pay up, you deadbeat. My anger left William and Tamara slumped on the floor, muttering faint apologies and promises to reflect on their behavior, their words barely audible. Riley, looking down at them with the neighbors, couldn't help but laugh. What pathetic people. Absolutely. I endured all this because I thought even a dad like him might be better than none until Michelle became an adult. But now I see having someone like that around is far worse. And Tamara too. I never want either of them involved in our lives again. When I declared this firmly, Riley and the neighbors applauded, encouraging me. And so I successfully divorced William and severed all ties with them, who had verbally abused me for years. Unsurprisingly, William and Tamara had to move out of the house they'd been living in. The reason? They couldn't bear the judgmental stares from the neighbors. The two of them, who had such high opinions of themselves and looked down on others, couldn't stand the fact that everyone around them knew they had bullied a wife into leaving, only to face a divorce trial with a hefty compensation claim. However, William had a low salary, and Tamara was unemployed. The type of property they could afford to move into was predictably limited. They ended up cramming themselves into a small apartment, where arguments erupted daily between them. William, unable to handle the stress, began taking it out on his subordinates at work. He had always had a reputation for being overbearing, but his behavior worsened, prompting complaints from his subordinates to the company. As a result, he was transferred to a branch office 2 hours away by train. Even then, he couldn't afford to move closer due to financial constraints, and he had to keep paying me child support and the settlement. Quitting his job wasn't an option. Every day, he commutes while cursing his misfortune, wondering, how did it come to this? As for Tamara, she wanted to restore her lowered standard of living and decided to take a part-time job. But for a nearly 70-year-old who hadn't worked for years, every day at work was filled with scoldings and frustration. Her inflated pride was crushed repeatedly. Although I think it's a well-deserved lesson for her, after her grueling shifts, she has to return to the apartment where William waits, scheming to kick her out. Tamara likely wants to live apart from William, but she has neither the money for a move nor the knowledge of how to go about it. The two of them are now stuck together in mutual resentment, and as someone who is no longer connected to their mess, all I can do is laugh from afar. Meanwhile, Michelle and I are fully enjoying our first taste of peaceful daily life. With no more complaints, snide remarks, or verbal abuse, I now have plenty of time to spare, and I no longer waste energy on unnecessary stress. Work and house chores have become genuinely enjoyable, and I'm discovering how much fun they can be. We can go anywhere we want, and I've been able to spend time with friends who supported me during the divorce, including Riley. Most of all, what makes me happiest is that Michelle has started expressing her desires to me. She must have been holding back out of consideration for me, seeing how William and Tamara mistreated me. I hadn't realized until after the divorce that I had turned her into such a quiet, obedient child over those 5 years. Now our meals together are filled with laughter and cheerful conversations, a stark contrast to before the divorce. I hesitated to divorce because I didn't want Michelle to grow up without a dad. But it wasn't until William was gone that I could truly focus on her. From now on, I want to make up for those 5 years of restraint and worry by living a happy, loving life together with her.